everybody. Are you wondering what this is? Is this a water bottle? No, this is a gas tank, my friends. 6.5 or 7 liters of gas. And we need more gas storage because that holds 6.5 there. That'll get us about 20 miles, maybe 15. So we need more than that. So what we're doing, we're going to mount a gas tank here, right here, and we got these little blocks here we're putting behind here, and we're going to epoxy those blocks in place here and here, and then we're going to drill a big hole in the, after it's all epoxied and solid and everything good to go, we're going to drill a big hole here, and we're going to fill the hole with epoxy. Then we're going to stick a bolt head in there and then fill that all up with epoxy. Then the bolt will stick out from there. Same with this one. We'll drill a big hole, fill it with epoxy, then have the bolt head stick out through here. And of course, the bolt threads are going to screw to the gas tank. So anyway, and there's one more down here that we have to do too, but I haven't got to that part yet. But I got to get there. See, that's roughly. Well, that's not even lined up with my mark. So anyway, we got to do roughly the same thing down there. Epoxy a block on there. But we're going to do these right now. And then the second tank, of course, you see we have 2 tanks, one here and one there. The other tank's going to go here. Same song, second verse. And we'll have to block it up and epoxy and the exact same thing. We're kind of leaning the front down slightly, because that's where the fuel drain is at this corner. So this corner is going to be like a 1/4 of an inch lower than this end. This end will be lower than this end. And so we'll have so it favors that fuel flow, the fuel drain there. So anyway, we're going to do this one, get this one all epoxied. Then we're going to start managing this one. Once this one's done and all the bolts are dried and everything, we'll work on that bottom hole there, because I got to get in the boat and lay down and do some work. And we really won't know exactly where this will be until these bolts are in and this bolt's on. And then we'll know exactly where that'll be, so that way there's no problem with missing the mark. Same thing here. And we've got these are little pieces of Lawaan leftovers from our boat building. These are the same wood that we built all of our supports and stuff with. So anyway, we're going to make some epoxy and stick that on there. But before we can do that, okay, we can move this. I'm going to take my Dremel tool, my little one right here, and kind of prep the surface here, kind of grind all that paint off so there's wood exposed, so that the epoxy sticks to wood great, but it doesn't stick to paint great, because the paint doesn't stick to the wood that great. So you can peel it off and it peels the paint off of the wood. The paint sticks to the epoxy, but the paint doesn't stick to the wood that good. So anyway, we'll do some exposing the wood with that little Dremel tool there. So we will be back with more. Double your pleasure, double your distance, triple your distance actually, because we got 3. That's about a 6.5 liter, that's about a 6.5, and that's about 6.5. These could be 7, I don't know, but 6.5, 7, and that's 6.5, 7. So we're 20 liters, 5 gallons roughly. We got 5 gallons of gas. So we will be back with more in my Paradise on Bantayan Island. These are, of course, our little blocks that we're going to use, and likewise, I said same thing here. So Paradise. All right, everybody, I have taken the Dremel with this little carbide cutter bit and prepped the surface here. Just kind of got the paint off, gave it some texture for the epoxy to grab to, some exposed wood there for it to really sink in and latch on. So I think we're good to go here. Now we're going to mix up some epoxy over here. And again, this is all non-sag stuff, and non-sag's been working out really as good, better than the regular stuff for these little jobs we have, because they're, like I said, these things run down. These are vertical, and it runs out the bottom here, and so non-sag minimizes that. It doesn't eliminate it. It's not really non-sag, but it's a little bit sag resistant. I've said that before. Okay, so we're going to do that one. Epoxy that on while that's drying, and we're babysitting it because we have to kind of push it up, and these will try to fall out, and you don't know what's going to happen, but we need to keep an eye on it and make sure that it doesn't sag and fall out or run down the sides here, anything like that. But while we're doing that, we're going to be right here doing the same song, second verse, right here, blocking this one up and preparing it just like that, and then we'll epoxy it, and then we gotta let them all dry. And that'll be tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll come back and they'll be all dry. Then we can drill the hole into here, set the bolt into here. You're gonna fill the hole with the epoxy, set the bolt in here, and then we'll be able to mount that bad boy after the bolts dry another day. So we will be back with more epoxy step next. Paradise out. Alrighty, looks like we got, this is the steering arm of course, but try to get it out of the way. We got those all epoxied in and caked, kind of loaded with epoxy, the wood, so it's totally encased. And everybody, we are back the next day, and our epoxy blocks are nice and hard. About 24 hours we'll get epoxy pretty close to being perfect. It might say 96 hours on the can. I don't know for total. Something like that. That's 96 hours, yeah. Now the materials said are hardened for 4 hours before sanding and filling. Yeah, so 96 for a complete solid 100%. But it's 24 and we're good to go. So these are the bolts we're going to put in here. Basically, we're going to drill a hole, stick these bolts in here, epoxy them in here. We're going to have to cut them off at some point. Here and here, and then we got to put a third one down here. But we got to put a block similar to this, 2x4, because this has to come out pretty far, more than a 2x4 actually, because see, that's a 2x4 there. So we'll have to add a little something onto a 2x4. Epoxy it all together. We'll nail it into these here 1x2s. All right, everybody. I put a depth gauge on my drill bit, as you can see. I put a masking tape around there so we stop at a certain depth. The depth is basically the back of this block, so we still got epoxy behind it and some of this wood behind it. So this is where the boat fits in, and actually fits in snugly. It sounds like somebody's name, Snuggly. But anyway, it slides in here. We'll fill this with epoxy, and then we'll push that in, and that epoxy will, of course, ooze out. So, alrighty, folks. This is basically, I just stuck the bolts in there in the holes, as you saw, and then I just slid this on there. This is not epoxied or nothing like that, but that's basically the setup for the tank. I don't know what they'll call that, tank 1 or tank 2. We'll call it front tank. How's that? That's back tank, front tank. So anyway, another thing we need to do is be sure that these bolts point up somewhat so that you can put the nut on. Because if they point down, see, it hits the tank and you can't put the nut on. So as the epoxy dries, we need that bolt to be kind of elevated above level. And this will slide on like that. So anyway, that's one tank, and we're going to mark this one and drill it and epoxy all these bolts at one time. And then we will get busy on making the bottom mount. I don't know what you call these, mounting blocks. Mounting block here and a mounting block here for the third bolt at the bottom. So we will be back with more. We got to mount it. Just set that up there, mark it with the felt tip pin, and drill it. And then we're going to start epoxying. Paradise out. Dual gas tanks, so actually triple gas tanks if you count that one. a Trimaran with gas tanks. So, oh, yeah, baby. All right, everybody. Out. You can see we now have our screws. Well, you can't see anything because we got masking tape hiding it. But what we did, we took the epoxy here and took a big old glob on the corner and went over to the hole and shoved it in there and pushed it in and then slid the knife out. And then we took and put one more in there. And then we took the bolt, just the bare bolt, and we also taped off the end of the bolt so epoxy doesn't get in these threads. And we shoved it in there, pushing all that epoxy back as far as we could. And then we pulled this bolt out, and then we put more epoxy in there, 2 more corner loads of this, shoved them in there, and then we forced this in there, and we wiggled it around and around, not turning it, but angling it, because the epoxy will come out the sides here, because see, that's not round. So it oozes out the sides as we wiggle it back and forth and get it all the way back to where the tape is, because we put the tape at the front of this, so we know, like a depth gauge, and also to keep the epoxy out of the threads. So when we got it all the way back to there, we knew we were in. And then we took and pushed all the epoxy in the front, back in the hole, filling everything. Then, because like I said, we want these screws to kind of angle up some, so that it's easy to put the nuts on the gas tank. And so then we took and masking taped these up, and there's the distance between here and here has to also fit on the tank. So we take the tank and slide it on these, just make sure they line up with the holes, and then leave it be until it dries. And likewise with those 2 there. So you'll see the end product when it's done, but they're angled up slightly, like I said, like that, away from the top of the tank. Because like I said, if you angle them straight, you barely got enough room between the bolt and the top of the tank to screw on the nut. So if you bring it up, then you got a lot more room to manage there. And then we also mark these bottom parts here. This is kind of where that tab is. It's kind of half on here and half over here on both of these. It's kind of on the edge of this and that. So we're going to take a 2x4. This is Lawa'an here. That's a drawing of our boat, by the way. This Lawa'an, if it's the right size, and this one is actually the perfect size here. So we're going to notch it so this actually fits in there. It'll be notched out here for this wood and be notched out here for this wood, and then it'll slide back in there, and then that'll kind of lock in place. Hey everybody, look at this. We got all of our bolts all epoxied in here, nice and rock solid. Rock solid, folks, rock solid. We got them angled up also, so that it's easy to put the nut on there. It doesn't bump into the case here. See right here? There's not much clearance under here for the nut. So now that we got these going up, we got plenty of clearance. And we dremeled out off some of the paint to give it some texture, and also expose some wood so that the epoxy will stick to the wood. Because the epoxy adheres to wood really, really good, and epoxy doesn't adhere to paint as good. It'll adhere to it, but not as good. So anyway, we dremeled all that with my little handy dandy Dremel with a little carbide bit. We're getting ready to mix up some epoxy. This is the block of wood that's going to have the bottom mount on it, and it goes like this, right there. See, it fits in there nice and snugly, so that'll fit in there. And then we'll put a bolt in here wherever the appropriate place is, but not going up, because if you go up, you go into the bottom of the case. So this bolt down here is going to have to go straight out, and it can't go down. If it goes down, then you can't put all 3 on because you're too far apart. We may notch this bottom thing here and open the bottom so it's more like a fork, and it just sits down on the bolt if we have to. But anyway, this block goes here, epoxy on there. This block here, we cut these just big goes right there, and of course the screw's going to go in here. So we're going to get busy epoxying. I'm not dremeling this because this is just a thin 1/4 inch plywood, and I don't want to make it that any more weak. I mean, the adherence here and here is way more than we need for these two gas tanks. So we are going to get busy with the epoxy, and we'll be back with more. Putting them gas tanks on. Paradise. Let me show you a gas tank. I should at least hang it. See, this one hangs too, nicely. Very nicely. Just like that. Boom. One there and one there. The other one's in that bag there. Voila. Paradise out. All right, everybody. Looks like we got the bottom one all epoxied and put in. We got the bolt in place here. We did a kind of a mock-up fit on that bolt to make sure it was at least close to the hole. And this one here, we did this one too. So you got the 3 mounting points for the gas tank. And again, the gas tank slightly leans down toward the drain is at this end of the gas tank. So we're kind of aiming it slightly down. Also, the front of the boat might go up too. So as far as what we think is level with the gas tank depends on, a wave goes up and it's higher, and now it's lower and now it's higher. So the gas line hopefully will help regulate any quick move back and forth. Looks like we got it here. See, there's the block down there. Everything's on. I just got to put nuts on here. This one here is also done. I'll go to the other side so we can kind of see what it is that we're dealing with. Get these bolts out of the way, and now we got to do the throttle. Yeah, we got the chair, but yeah, so the gas tanks here fit nicely. Ta-da, 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 ta-da. So